Hello, hello, mis cielitos, and welcome back. Coco is here, and I am continuing Raging Loop. Had to shift it to this Tuesday because we got a wild thunderstorm out of nowhere. And even if my internet were to hold up, I was certain it would be heard. I would move swiftly and in short bursts. I'd make noise for sure, but it would also make it harder for any other potential lurkers to find me. The Okiba were large and had decent amounts of space between them, making them good hiding places. I ran and hid. Then I held my breath. Nothing was happening. Not thinking much about it, I repeated the process. I ran and hid, then stayed quiet. I ran and hid. Yoshitsugu-kun popped out of the stone I was aiming for and charged at me. I jumped to the side. A wood-cutting axe slashed through the place I was just standing in. Fuck! Wait, it's me! Calm down! You? Fuck! He then angrily threw the axe away in a random direction and screamed. Oh, fuck! No point in sneaking around anymore. But this made me understand something. His rage could only mean one thing. It was the one who died last night. Fuck. Fuck. After waiting for him to calm down a bit, we began walking together, no longer trying to hide at all. If he'd made so much noise and survived regardless, it was safe to assume that there would be no ambushes. And even if there was, it was 2 on 2. We would be on equal footing. As expected, we made it to the plaza without anything happening. Yoshitsugu-kun hadn't said a word the whole way. He was just breathing heavily, like when he attacked me, and his eyes were so wide, his agitation seemed to become madness. I'll look. Not waiting for an answer, I went to the dining hall. I was instantly assaulted by a strange reek. We would never eat here again. As I became certain of that fact, my heart sank, which was pretty out of character for me. I took a step forward. The cupboard's glass was completely destroyed, and there were porcelain pieces all over the place. This must have been caused by Yoshitsugu-kun's rampage. Her bed was upstairs. I went up carefully just in case, but it didn't feel like there was anyone alive inside. The porcelain walls were slightly damaged in places. Yoshitsugu-kun had taken it really hard, huh? Even the phone, the only one in the village, was completely broken and on the floor. After seeing it, I went further in, to her room. It was the same. The philosophy behind the murder was the same as Haru-chan's. The bloody footprints were standard at this point. There was no doubt that this was done by wolves. What was different was that it wasn't a clobbering, but a slashing. Kaori Oribe's remains were cut up and drowning in a sea of blood. She hadn't been torn apart or split up randomly. It was best to say that she'd been cut into rings. Her body was lying on its back, covered neck to toe in horizontal slashes. They did make it to the bone, but didn't break through them. Her entire front was cut open like a fish fillet. I couldn't tell whether she died from the blood loss or suffocation due to the multiple neck injuries, but whichever it was, she suffered an awful end. And yet again, for some reason, her face was left completely untouched. She'd clearly vomited lots of blood, and her expression was downright demonic. Had she been conscious while it was happening? Were the faces of the detestable wolves burned into her now dead eyes? I'd seen how intense this woman could be, and at this point, a part of me felt like it was the real her. However, no matter how demonic, she was definitely a loving mother. To both her two sons, as well as Yasumisu as a whole. Looking at her reminded me of the Buddhist goddess demon Hariti, or Kishimojin, no matter how irrelevant that was. And oh boy was it irrelevant. In Shinai-sama's court, gods on the outside had absolutely no power. Suddenly, I realized that her arms were completely unharmed. I also noticed that some of the wounds seemed to be facing downwards. The back of the hand was facing upwards, while the palm was facing down despite the wounds being on the palm. Why? Upon further observation, I noticed something strange about her undamaged hand. Her fingers were in a peculiar position. Her right hand squeezed its pinky and ring finger. Pinky and ring finger. Meanwhile, her left was grasping all the fingers except the thumb. Had she been conscious when she'd gotten these wounds? Had she bent her arms and pushed her fingers on the floor into this position? Was it a shape created by her painful, observed end? Or perhaps some sort of message? Yoshitsugu-kun had caught up with me, with Yasunaga-kun in tow. Mom. That it? What are you getting at? You think you understand how I feel? You want me to wail or something? I'm grieving too. This is pure despair. I need to think so I can avenge her. Mom always told me to think a lot, study a lot, and become a hallmark of excellence so that Dad could rest in peace. I'm jealous of you. You don't have to deal with that. You lived however you wanted, yet you still got all of Mom's attention. In the end, I've been clinging to something so childish my whole life, and we've wasted time on such useless thoughts. I still thought that all these walls between us would be gone when you grew up and Mom became reasonable. That's impossible now. It makes me feel empty. Aniki. Please, don't say stuff like that. Mommy's gone. She'd always say something if we were being troublesome, but she's no longer here. Why are you being so troublesome at a time like this? I will avenge her. I will find out what these fingers mean, understand it, and chase down who did it. That will be the end of my involvement with her. Mommy loved you. You know, you always piss me off, too. When we talked, she always talked about you. She'd do it with others, too. Hell, she'd even talk about you when she's by herself. You live in the dorm, so you don't know this. But recently, she often talked to Dad's photo and always about you. You're lying. I'm not. She loved you more than me. Of course she did. You're better than me. That's why she pushed this shit on me. Suddenly, he pushed me aside, went forward, and reached for her body. Hey, what are you doing? Mommy, I'm so sorry. All choked up, he screamed and opened his dead mother's mouth. Shit! It ain't here! Yoshitsugu, stop! Did she swallow something? Yasunaga-kun's eyes widened at my question, while Yoshitsugu-kun reached for the wound on her neck. Mommy... Found it. What he took out was something small and covered in blood. He cleaned it with his fingers, exposing something transparent. Apparently, it was something covered in food wrapping. Aniki, open it. She told me to dig through her body if she died, and give what I find to you. She really did love you more than me. Wake the fuck up! Usaishi-san. Sorry, but could you open it for me? My hands are shaking. I felt apologetic. I probably wasn't even supposed to be here in the first place, so I would at least do this much. The wrap had a rolled piece of paper inside. When I unrolled it, I realized just how small it was. There was tiny but legible writing on it. The wrap protected any damage caused by blood or saliva, so I could read it clearly. Telling us, oh? Number 1, Rikaku Uematsu. Number 2, Chiemi Serizawa. Number 3, Chikamochi Kamoshida. Number 4, Meiko. Number 5, Other. Please read this together, you two. I always knew you were concerned about my attitude. I wanted Yasunaga to show what he's capable of somewhere far away from this dreadful place, and I would be too worried if I didn't have Yoshitsugu at my side. I came this far with such thoughtlessness, but it doesn't seem like I will survive this night, so please understand this much. I loved both of you more than anything in the world. Please forget everything aside from that, and have a fun, brotherly life. Mother. This wasn't something I could read for them. I just spread it out and put it on the simple dresser on my side. It says you two should read it together. I will leave, but before that, let me examine your mother's remains a bit. They didn't say a word, and I took that as a yes. I walked up to the remains. Again, I checked that the wounds on the palms were facing down. The right hand's thumb, index finger, and middle finger were up, while on the left, it was only the thumb. Ah, I see. Damn, that was clever. I looked into the wound Yoshitsugu-kun had reached into and extended my finger towards it. I opened it up and examined the cut. It was just one large tube. I see. I'm done here. I'll wait with everyone downstairs. Give me a moment to take a bite of my food. Did not get the opportunity to eat before stream. Takumi-san was standing at the entrance to the dining hall, along with everyone else. He was armed with a farming tool, while Kanzo-san had a hunting knife. It was obvious that they'd walk around all of Yasumisu and woke everyone up. Thus, they understood the situation. The Oribe brothers and I missed them because we left our houses earlier than they came to us. They'd probably woken up early because they were worried about their mother. Takumi-san wasn't saying a word. He just cast his eyes down and tightly pursed his lips. He vehemently ignored his urge to run to Kaori-san. As a man who couldn't, or was too late to, become their father, he thought he had no right to step into their family matters. It was a tragedy. From start to finish. Good morning, everyone. This might be a bad time for this, but I now understand everything. Once they're back, I propose we start the final feast. It took a whole hour. I didn't hear any loud noises from upstairs the entire time. That was why, when they came downstairs with red eyes, we all understood that they'd been quietly crying. Everyone silently agreed with my proposal, and we all went to the hall. We all had our sake, and the eldest among us spoke. We're starting the feast. Yasunaga-kun instantly raised his hand. May I? Usaishi-san. I don't mind. Then, I declare that Rikaku Uematsu and Chikamochi Kamoshida are wolves. Wait, didn't you believe Uematsu? Saving the snake, Usaishi-san, from death made her trustworthy, but not completely. In fact, by getting Fusaishi-san on her side, he probably avoided becoming the target of his ability last night. That might have been her intention. Well, that's true. I investigated Yoshitsugu-kun last night. You suspected me? What was the result? He's a human. I knew it. That means the only ones whose identity we don't know are Rikaku Uematsu, Meiko, Chieni, and Mochi. However, my now late mother, Kaori Oribe, did the final filtering for us. He reached into his pocket and took out the letter from before. Kaori-san's final words. Everyone came closer and read it. Some began to choke up and cry. But everyone knew that what mattered right now wasn't the message she'd left to the brothers. What does this part mean? This is a list of people Mom found most suspicious written in her handwriting. It includes those who weren't confirmed to be human by the snake or anything else. Chieni, Mochi, Uematsu-san, Meiko. Mom excluded herself, obviously. And Yoshitsugu-kun isn't here because she simply trusted him. She left an other point, just in case Fusaishi-san or someone else turned out to be wolves. Though even if it was other, it would be a hint that Fusaishi-san was lying, which would be invaluable to us. She used this to leave us a message. Wait, this is just a list of names. How do you turn this into a hint? The number of fingers Mom was holding up. Most of you didn't see it, but her fingers were in strange positions. Fusaishi-san, Yoshitsugu. You remember how they were, right? The right was clenching the pinky and ring finger, while the left was clenching all besides the thumb. She held up 3 on her right and 1 on her left, didn't she? Yeah, that's right. The number of fingers are pointing to the wolves. Yes. When the wolves come, you wouldn't have the time to leave a message like this. That's why she wrote it down and swallowed it.
Oh. Paper isn't tasty.
Be silent, Meiko.
Oh, Ned-chan. You're scary.
She had to go that far. Now you must remember Haru-chan's death. Just like Mom, she was brutally killed in her futon. There was no sign of resistance from her. Mom's surroundings were a mess, but that was because I went apeshit. Yes, that means they both died while, for some reason, being unable to resist, or had their remains damaged after they were killed. That means that, while you're dying, you aren't in a state to do anything, and the wolves are watching too. It's hard to imagine that you could leave any dying message in that situation, but Mom found a loophole.
I see. It's hard to think you could write a message using your own blood or something. The wolves would see it and just erase it.
Exactly. You can't leave any major info. However, if you write the actual information somewhere else, and provide the bare minimum needed to find it, that would be more than enough. Mom's way was using her fingers, and the wolves didn't notice. At least we hope they didn't. I mean, even if they, well, I don't know. Because if they saw her putting her fingers in a weird way, even if they weren't aware of the letter, they could have still just been like, alright, let's just switch some things up. Which could have still... it would have still been a bit of a gamble, but... That said, that was still very smart of her. I didn't think it was possible to go around the feast rules like this. I must admit, I was too hard-headed. While I refused to do anything impossible, Mom didn't. She went as far as to swallow this, so I can only imagine how dedicated she was to leave this message. That is all. Uematsu, you killed her, huh? So we should have hanged her yesterday. No, that is not true.
That's pretty sloppy, Yasun. Is that really enough to conclude that Richan and I are the culprits?
Exactly. I know full well that I am no wolf. In which case, I can only say that Oribe-sama's fingers have to be some sort of mistake.
What if you're supposed to read it differently? What if she counted the bent fingers?
That means it's Chiemi and Mako. The complete opposite. Mako is not a wolf, and neither am I. If Yoshitsugu Oribe-sama is a human, then it must be Serizawa-sama and Kamoshida-sama. Oribe-sama's fingers must be some sort of mistake. What are you saying? It's not me!
Yeah, it doesn't really make sense. Honestly, I think we should look into the possibility that Hassan's a wolf.
They looked at me with suspicious eyes. Apparently, even almost dying from poisoning wasn't enough to earn their unconditional trust. We haven't settled it yet, Yasu. I've no doubt that the wolves are Rikaku Uematsu and Shikamochi Kamoshida.
Do you have anything to support the trustworthiness of the message?
I didn't want to say it. But when the poisoner used aconite, I thought of you.
Oh, I see.
'Cause he's an Osato.
Well, it's true that we learn how to handle poisonous plants.
Haruaki-san, do you remember if you ate something leaf-like when you were poisoned? I'd been on the ground, so of course I remembered. There were some largish onion and cabbage pieces, but I didn't see anything strange. Exactly. We all checked your bowl afterwards, and it didn't look like there was any aconite inside. That must mean the poison was in fluid form, extracted from the plant itself. And the only ones here capable of doing that are Kyunosuke no Sato-san and him, the ex-heir apparent to the family, who knows a lot about herbs, poisonous or otherwise.
That reminded me that last time, Kaori-san put just the cut leaves, and Kyunosuke-san instantly noticed. Really? Don't we all know what aconite looks like? Anyone can think of extracting the poison, right?
Why aren't you just saying that it's not you?
But it isn't. I mean, look at my arms. There's no way I can cut up a corpse.
Yeah. Shikamochi, are you doing this on purpose? Are you just letting yourself get... Alright. How did you know Mom's body was cut up? Everything seemed to grind to a halt. Yasunaga Oribe glared at his ex-friend with both anger and a bit of grief. Shikamochi Kamoshida looked back at him with a poker face. So Kaori-san's message is true. Yes. I don't know, something's weird about this. I don't think that Shikamochi would have slipped up that easily. Kamoshida-sama. That cannot be true. Alright, hold it. I got some looks that could kill. But I had to do it. Everything depended on it. I believe Yasunaga-kun is on the right path, and that Kaori-san's work is invaluable for us. However, I believe there are some things you failed to consider. What is it? I'm all ears. Ignoring his somewhat antagonistic tone. You mentioned Kaori-san's body. All of it was covered in cuts, except for the face and hands. First of all, why did they ignore those places? Consider Haru-chan. Her face was intact, but her hands certainly weren't. I felt bad about making them remember things they didn't want to, but I had no choice. I think I can understand leaving the face. Considering how brutal the murder is, the face being untouched just makes it more cruel. But what about the hands?
Fingers are easier to cut than any part of the body. Why did they leave them? Why wouldn't you say it seemed artificial? Like whoever did it wanted to leave a dying message. Artificial. Yes. Cut to the chase, the wolves left them like that to trick us. Hold the fuck on! The paper had Mom's writing! Oh, and it must be. I don't doubt that. Kaori-san likely swallowed it for the plan you mentioned. And Yoshitsugu-kun was told to take it out in case something happened, right? Yeah, I was. I think that's flawed, since all secrets are likely to be leaked out into the open, but I'm not going to talk about the possibilities. The problem is that the way she was killed didn't let her leave this message. You think she couldn't have resisted because she couldn't move a finger? I'm not sure about that. Maybe yes, maybe no. Instead of speculating, I would just ask Nosato-san. Me? Yes. Can you clench your hand with deep cuts all over your arm? That is... impossible. The muscles that move the joints and the fingers are connected to the arm, not the palm. What? If she put her fingers into those positions before she was cut, her hand should have opened when the muscle was damaged. On the other hand, if she wanted to do it after the cut, she couldn't grasp her fingers anymore. But that... oh, I see. So that's why the wounds were facing down. They were. Yes, the wounds on the arms alone were facing the floor instead of up. She couldn't clench her fingers, so she moved her arms against the floor to force the fingers into that position and... Do you really think she could? Her arms were destroyed so badly, I hardly doubt she could move them. Though this is a matter of likelihood, too. Let's assume there was a 50% chance she could do it. So far, the only unnatural thing is the fingers were unharmed, grass, and that this secret talk didn't leak. There's also another strange thing about it. She was injured in her neck too. It was a deep wound, but it didn't seem to reach the bone. There was one large tube in the cut. Nosato-san, what's the first tube you come across when cutting the throat? The trachea! That means Yoshitsugu-kun took the paper out of the trachea, the tube that passes air when breathing. With something stuck in a place like that, you'd quickly suffocate. There's no way she could have gotten it in there. This is true. We have the cough reflex. If you swallow something, it's bound to pass the esophagus instead of the trachea and end up in the stomach. Also, just like Haru-chan, she vomited out a lot of blood. The letter must have left her body when she was being murdered, and the wolves must have noticed it. The letter is real, but it was stuffed into her throat afterwards, by wolves who don't know anatomy. Then... Yes, the hams were unharmed because they wanted to pass on a false message. The wounds on the arms were reversed because the number of fingers up wouldn't stay that way unless they used the floor to do so. Also, it's likely that the wolves heard her talk about swallowing the letter and went out of their way to search for it. These wolves are really fixated on destroying the remains. By being thorough about that, they prevented any chance of the humans leaving such messages. At least that's what I think. They're really meticulous, astute, and cunning. A bit tired of talking. I fell silent for a moment, and no one spoke up in my place. They were all at a loss for words. That's why Kaori-san's fingers are a red herring. We can't base our accusations on that. Kanzo Makishima-san. Have the dead left any messages in previous feasts? The elders all used to say, the dead only tell the Yomotsu Okami lies. There you had it. I like those words. They were on theme with the story, too. You can't trust dying messages. By merely proving that, Kaori-san contributed to us immensely. I understand and agree. With all this new knowledge I didn't have, it does seem very suspicious. Then who are the wolves? What does Mochi's slip of the tongue mean? We already know the answer. Rikako-san, what did you say before we talked about this? If Yoshitsugu Oribe-sama is a human, then I and Meiko are human as well. That leaves just Chikamochi Kamoshida-sama and Chiemi Serizawa-sama. Her words were slow, and so was everyone's reaction. Slowly. They turned to Chiemi, who'd almost never faced suspicion this whole feast. No way! I mean, what? Well, I don't want to believe that too, but there's nothing that says it isn't Rikako-san, right? Then I would let her do the talking. Rikako-san, you aren't the spider, are you? Correct. I knew it. Naturally, the impact of that revelation was great. You could tell by just looking at everyone's shocked faces. Who's the real spider? Meiko.
Are you sure, One-chan?
Yes. I trust Haruaki-sama.
Yeah, I'm the spider. I had One-chan's sting on my tummy.
He pointed at Rikako-san's brooch. Huh? What? Why? Did you see her guardian mark? Of course not. That is a taboo act that would render me deserving of the corruption. However, as a bedroom woman servant, it is my role to watch over the darkness in Fujiyoshi. So, in the case that the mists come, and this girl became involved, I taught her a few things, since she could not yet read, and so I could help her.
I remember the symbols.
What are you drawing?
Those are guardians.
Guardians?
She said if I'm the spider, my leg starts to hurt. One-chan, I rolled in my futon and hit my leg. It hurts.
A bit later, I will make it better, with some magic words. And if you were the snake...
My eyes would hurt.
And the crow?
My tummy would hurt.
And the wolf?
My head would hurt.
Meiko was talking way more than usual. She probably wanted to talk a lot during the feast, but we never gave her a chance to. And the monkey?
Then I don't have to say it.
That is because I cannot claim to be her when she is the monkey. I see. But how did Meiko write down the names of the people she'd protect as the spider? I wrote them down myself, and I gave it to her when changing her clothes. It doesn't have to be the one with the guardian themselves who writes it. I was not sure, so I had her copy my writing.
I learned lots of hiragana.
This might be an actual loophole in the feast rules. Secret talks during the day are never actually secret. If you somehow encrypt the information ahead of time, then the wolves who got it couldn't decipher it. They probably wouldn't even recognize it as info. And no one would think that such a little girl was bending the rules. When you looked at it as a game, it was clearly unfair. However, when our lives were on the line, we couldn't really care about that. Anyway, though Rikako-san wasn't the spider,
He was like her representative and used his position to protect Kanzo-san once. You seemed the most important one of us back then, but I could not predict that they would attack Haru Makishima-sama next. It's fine. A spider that protects one is a good spider. I thought it was weird. The spider normally had no reason to out themselves. It was strange that we had two.
That was true, but with the old wolf guy being the other candidate, I really couldn't understand why it had happened. Still, there was no point in thinking about that in this loop.
I suspected this on the first day when she insisted I vote for her instead of Mako. She was probably thinking of becoming Mako's shield, coming out as a fake spider, and letting the real one live on. Also, and she told Mako to tell you if she was a wolf. Yes, I intended to kill her and suffer the corruption.
No reaction to that, Mako?
And since I knew the truth, I was able to reduce the suspects to just 3. All that was left was to confirm which one of them was human. That would mean that the other 2 were wolves.
The process of elimination. If you picked a wolf, you still wouldn't know the last one.
I see. So you picked the least suspicious one of that 3. Yoshitsugu. More or less.
Oh, so you didn't suspect me.
Now, after hearing all that, can you still say this is all just a well-crafted fabrication?
Fight time.
And you 2. The 2 we have left. The 2 we have left thanks to the process of elimination. Do you have any excuses that would work to prove you aren't the wolves?
If I am, why was I a wolf in Mommy Kaori's false info?
Yes, it makes no sense. Why do the wolves have to mix true information with the false? Because he is the decoy. How do you believe I was poisoned?
Yes, that still isn't clear. That's why Lady Oribe was suspected. She was the only one who could target you.
Wait. Yes, she's the only possible option. If you're aiming specifically for me, anyway. I see. So that's how it is. It didn't matter who died. Exactly. I wasn't a target at all. They didn't care about who died. Whoa, hold on. What do you mean? They targeted you because you're the snake, right? That's the very source of the misunderstanding. It just so happened that the poisoned bowl went to me. He probably found a chance to get poison in a bowl and took it. Maybe it was just a drop on the top bowl. He had more than enough opportunities to do something that simple. And when it was time to eat, the wolves just avoided their bowls and chatted while watching if something was happening to the others. They'd only eat after they saw who got the poison. After the chaos that followed, it was impossible to tell if someone was avoiding the food. If no one ended up getting poisoned, it would mean that one of their bowls had the poison, so they'd say they weren't feeling hungry and excuse themselves. Anyway, doing that would reduce the humans by 1. Makishima-san, Takumi-san, and Yasunaga-kun had a lot of influence here. Yosato-san's position here is complicated. Rikako-san is the self-proclaimed spider, while I'm the snake. You can say that most of the humans are worth killing for them. And if the poison killed someone, the only suspect would be the cook and the only one who could target someone, Kaori-san. the self-proclaimed crow. Then, you almost died. Because of a simple coincidence, but since I just revealed that I was the snake, it was extremely effective. If I died because of this, the wolves wouldn't have killed Kaori-san, and she would have been hanged today. I took a few breaths. Everyone was silent, probably because they were reflecting on the way they suspected her yesterday. But not only did I survive, Uematsu-san's strange power that saved me helped her gain some level of trust. That being the case, they assumed that she would use her spider powers to protect me, meaning they couldn't kill me that night either. They probably did consider killing her, but as she proves time and time again, her position here in Fujiyoshi is extremely poor. It was enough for her to be hanged if measured against Chiemi-chan. They could kill her in the daytime, so they decided to kill Kaori-san instead. Whether that was a good second option aside, I don't think it's unlikely for these two to think that way. Now, back to the matter at hand. Killing 2 people in one day makes you a target of the corruption. That means that Chikamochi Kamoshida poisoned the bull, knowing what would happen. He probably did it while knowing that he, as a disowned Nosato child, would be the prime suspect. Typically, it's hard for all the wolves to survive. If they actively faked having guardians, they would certainly end up hanged. However, thanks to some form of unity between them, they could choose scapegoats from among them to serve the role of the faker or the rule breaker. That's Shikamoki Kamoshida's role. That's why he was probably ready to die because of Kaori-san's final message. However, if Rikako-san was hanged today, they could kill me today, make a mess of things, and maybe even survive. Yep, which is why he purposely let it slip. And I was like, no, that's the trap there. That's what they were betting on, I assume. Unfortunately for them, it didn't work. He looks down with a half smile, gathering everyone's attention. That seems really one-sided. I mean, we have no proof that Hassan and Richan are what they claim to be. He brought up something we'd been over already. And since that was all they had left... And maybe you can actually read Mommy Kaori's fingers some other way. Mochi. That's enough. It's getting cringeworthy. Then... yeah. Oh. Alright, just pulls out guns, alright. Oh, I love this image. They look great. Villainous. Let's kill them all. Everyone here had a certain hope. They believed that, if exposed, the wolves would admit it and give themselves in. It would be too late for them to keep struggling after all. Certainly, they wouldn't attack the humans head-on. Certainly, their ex-neighbors wouldn't be that malicious and murderous. I couldn't blame them for their optimism. I was the only one who knew how badly Yasunaga Oribe changed last time, so I should have been the one to take care. However, even I could be taken off guard. I knew that the current wolves were wicked, but I thought it was because of Shikamoki Kamoshida, the boy with unusual tendencies and devilish intuition. I knew that she could use a gun, but I didn't expect her to whip one out right in front of us. She was the girl who told me to leave her and run, despite the invisible god terrorizing her. The girl who opened herself up to me despite knowing it wasn't meant to be. Never would have thought she'd bring a gun to this place and try to take everyone with her. The turn was so unexpected that the smart ones here were frozen. Those who hadn't suspected her weren't moving either. The ones who did. Chiemi, stop! Was the most proactive among us. You fool! And the one who didn't trust anyone. When the first shot was fired, the buckshot aimed at the end of the circle was blocked by Takumi-san's body. His large frame absorbed the bullets, bursting apart. Past his collapsing body, I saw her face. A beastly smile. A moment later, Hikamoki Kamoshida fired his own gun. Kanzoshi was charging towards him with a clenched fist, and the shot blew off his face. Next, beyond the bloody mist they left behind, I saw the eyes of a bird of prey. Run! The next person Shimi aimed at was Yoshitsugu-kun, who was trying to charge at her. That was when Kanzo-san, on the verge of death, landed a— wait, what? Okay, I thought his head had been completely eviscerated. Landed a punch on Chikamochi, as I absent-mindedly watched. Kyo, Saishi. It's up to you. I felt like I heard that voice, which snapped me out of my torpor. Inosuke was the same in that regard. Our eyes met, and then I hurried to take Rikako-san and Meiko's hands, while he grabbed Yasunaga-kun by the shoulders. Without even seeing the results of the third shot, we ran for the exit. We were closer to the exit than the elder side. We heard another gunshot, but we weren't in a situation to turn around. Rikako-san dropped to the ground, letting out a cry she did, and I ended up basically dragging her so we could evade our assailants. Inosuke saw that his expression changed, and he, still holding Yasunaga-kun's hand, used his open hand to push my shoulder. I felt like there was a silent understanding between us. Not saying a thing, he hurriedly let go of Yasunaga-kun and took Rikako-san's hand, while I took Yasunaga-kun's now empty hand. It was an irrational action. However, I'd probably thought that I had no right to hold her by the hand, a feeling which made it hard for me to run. Kinosuke starkly grasped her and started running. Following his example, I took Meiko under my arm and started running, pulling Yasunaga-kun with me. The young man seemed to be in a stupor. Was it just me, or was the mist even denser than usual? It probably felt that way because I was running, making the lack of visibility way more dangerous. I followed the gravel path and ran up a hill. It's okay, I can run by myself now. Hearing that clear voice, I let go of his hand. Where should we run? The Nosato Mansion, it's the sturdiest building here. That made sense. The other two were going there too, so if we regrouped and held our ground there... Suddenly, I heard laughter coming from the side. It almost makes me freeze, but I hold myself together and lowered my head. Another gunshot. I could clearly feel the bullets flying past the top of my head. Janie, why? Keep running! Meiko cried for the first time ever. I had to keep running while closing her mouth. I'd expected Yasunaga-kun to be right behind me, but I couldn't hear his footsteps anymore. Please stop. He was probably trying to convince Chiemi. I've always liked you, you know?
The feeling ain't mutual.
Damn, Jesus. Oh, that was... Ooh. That brief exchange and the gunshot that followed seemed strangely clear. Please don't make a sound, Meiko. Shit. Was this the end of the line for this loop? With Japan being a mostly gun-free society, their power could easily be both overestimated as well as underestimated, making it hard for us to gauge. However, here in a mist where I could barely see anything, and could be hit at point-blank range by surprise, I was all too aware. Guns were frightening tools that could end a life with a simple pull of the trigger. Haruaki-san, where are you? I made it to Tai Yamawaki-san's house, hid behind it, and waited. I had to catch my breath and figure out my best route to the Nosaro mansion. By following this path, I could pass the collapsed construction site and arrive at the mansion. That was the fastest way there, but I wasn't sure it was safe. Come out, I'll help you. Yeah, right. Hearing that cheerful voice, I heard the unlocked door open up. I ran as fast as I could, but she caught up easily, probably due to her healthy legs and familiarity with the land. Meiko was trying really hard not to scream, and I was hoping that she could hold it in. Hearing someone enter, I counted to 5 and snuck out. I didn't sense anyone following me. Going down the hill, I passed the plaza and continued making my way to the Nosato mansion, hoping they missed me. Putting Meiko on my back, I continued sneaking. This was the second time I'd reached the final stage with her by my side. Was it fate or something? Taking away that question, I went ahead. I kept moving forward, and quickly found out I was being too naive. Funny. There was a person right before the mansion. You're way funnier now than when you were alive, Uncle. There was a mess that looked vaguely human in front of him. He poked at it with something long and thin. Probably a shotgun. Anyway, guess that just leaves you, doesn't it, Hassan? I didn't know whether it was because he was a wolf or from the Crow family, but hiding behind an Okiba wasn't enough to fool him. Well, if you turn around and run, I'm gonna hit Meiko-chan on your back and kill her. You don't want that, do you? Ugh. Feels right. That aside, can you just face me? Old man Kanzo and Uncle did. It's more fun to me this way. The snappy attitude he'd given us on the latter part of the feast was nowhere to be seen. Faking his behavior to keep up the act just because he was a wolf must have been stressful for him. Right now, I was close to him, and could tell by his expression that he was extremely refreshed. But man, Yonosuke she seemed to have struggled, probably to let Rikako-san escape. He had guts in him somewhere, after all. I don't like shooting people at the back, like I did with Richard. It's in poor taste. Fuck. Let Meiko run away. That won't fly. I'm Okami-sama, you know. Can't let the top Yomi just walk away. Though, she could just return to Yomi on her own or something. Was he bound by the curse of the real story? I let Meiko go. Go down the cliff until you reach the river. When you do that. Doing that probably meant getting the same ending as last time. But it wasn't impossible that she'd make it. Chamie wasn't with us. Maybe if the little girl was alone. Whatever the case, it was better than just letting her get shot.
Fusayuki-san!
It's fine. It's gonna work out. And more importantly, if I died here, all of this would return to nothing and I'd loop. I'd actually reached a point where I considered that in my calculations. Go.
Goodbye.
Oh no, is he gonna shoot her anyway? As she started to run. Yeah, nah, just kidding. As Chikamochi Kamoshida began aiming at her again, I felt intense anger. Couldn't understand him at all. Was this how they really were? Or was this caused by the real story? My body moved before my messed up brain, which was something I didn't expect. My instinct to protect the children must have taken over. I heard the gunshot, then felt the lead bullets bite into my body. Because of the poor visibility, because the buckshot was small, probably meant for birds, the wound wasn't fatal. Still, the pain assaulting my body felt like I was pierced by a dull tip of a sword. I staggered a bit, then fell to my knees. It hurt a lot. I didn't feel Mako behind me. He must have run away without looking back. No idea if that meant anything. It hurt. Fuck, it hurt a lot. What was that about? Why would you die for her? You're supposed to play with me, Hassan. Get it? Play with me. Ignoring my pain, he just said that. Oh well. If you're not up for it, maybe I can turn you into a funny corpse. That's not what we agreed on, Mochi. Oh. As I heard that voice, I looked up and saw that Chikamochi Kamoshida was dead. The wolf that popped out of the mist wielded a blade instead of a gun. I said I'm going to take Haruaki-san. It was an extremely sharp kitchen knife. It was embedded to the hilt in the other wolf's head. The boy quickly collapsed without saying a word. Jamie grabbed his weapon, checked the chambers, and clicked her tongue. Then she walked up to the boy's corpse. Not a shot. What a waste of bullets. You suck, Mochi. And removed the knife from his head. The body jerked for a moment, then lay still. So she looked at the weapon, wet with gray matter, and threw it away. I wondered what she'd do next, and she took a new weapon out of her sleeve. It was like her entire body was a weapon. I began to question just how well I'd actually known her. Haruaki-san, you're all alone now. It's just the two of us. Not like that means much. She sounded bored. I could feel the bloodlust and malice behind her words. Can't say anything anymore, huh? Why? Ah, you can talk. Good to know. Why are you doing this? Can you blame me? There's no other way for us, is there? I didn't think you were like this. I don't know if it's the law or the legend or whatever, but I always thought you'd always resist it, no matter how scary it was. Yet you... Too bad. She spoke with unbridled malice. You think it's 'cause Shinai-san said it? That's just stupid. It's God that's making everyone dance like they are. Listen, I just really wanted to kill. Yeah, I even returned back home just because I wanted to kill someone. That's why I'm feeling great right now. Too bad, Romeo. That's how I always was. You have no luck with women, do you? But that was just... I thought about what it would be like to kill you from the moment I met you. In a way, this moment is like a dream come true. I'm breaking the rules, so I'll just be a pile of meat tonight. This will be my final bit of fun before that happens. So now... Let's make a bet. All my curiosity about the mystery, the fear of the path leading to it, even the pain were all gone. Only pride was left. Give me 10 minutes. I'll use them to run away. Once the time's up, you chase after me. If I get away, I win. If you win, I wanted to set my own rules. I'll die with love for you. That sounds great.
Even if this was a meaningless, insane dead end, I would go and die on my own way. Well, that does answer the question I've had for a long time. I mean, it's possible it's still just all the influence of the real story or whatever, but for someone who hated this place and spoke often about hating this place and knew that the possibility of something like this could happen, it was weird that she came back. Albeit staggering, I could still run if I ignored the pain. Blood was flowing out of all the wounds on my body. I was probably leaving an easy-to-follow trail behind me. Like, I'm not set on believing if that is the case. Because, yeah, we all saw what happened to Yasunaga-kun and Haru and Tai. But it would be very I guess I'm leaning to... It's less that I'm leaning to that being factual, but I would actually kind of like it if that was the case, that she was actually murderous all this time, even without the influence. Blood was flowing out of all the wounds on my body, so I was probably leaving an easy-to-follow trail behind me. Even so, I ran uphill toward Kami Fujiyoshi. I knew that the path was closed off here. The last loop, Haru-chan had entered the mountain and gotten stuck. The Misty Mountain was a separate realm, avoided by the people of Yasumisu. Perhaps like when I'd left through Soranaga, I was about to get lost in the mist and die to some monster. Even so, if I brought Chiemi here, I could maybe give a chance for Mako to escape, and that would be good enough for me. If she wasn't coming after me, it was unlikely that she'd go after Mako instead. Chiemi would be left in the village all by herself to her own insanity. In that case, I figured I had to try running away through here at least once. I'd given up on trying to understand her insanity this time around. Next time. Yeah, I'd think about it next time. I passed the cliff and reached the mountain. The mist was even denser than usual. I looked down and noticed that a lot of the road was covered by a landslide. The earth, sand, and collapsed trees made it pretty much impossible to walk past here. I couldn't tell if it was artificial, nor did I have the knowledge to investigate and find out. I just followed the path. The 10 minutes had already passed, so Chiemi must have been tailing me. Whenever I stopped, I felt I could hear the sound of rustled grass in the distance. He was chasing me. From what I could tell, she was actually following the winding mountain path. That was good for me. I wanted her to keep it up. It made this more interesting. Maybe she wasn't really trying to catch me. The distance between us wasn't closing at all. I suddenly became a bit dizzy. There was a largish tree nearby. I sat down next to it so I could catch my breath. My vision suddenly turned dim. I quickly opened my eyes, but I had a bad feeling, like I'd actually been out cold for a decent while. I tried standing up and realized that I couldn't move my limbs properly. I must have lost too much blood. The end was close. My dulled senses told me my pursuer was nearby. I tried finding the path again, but I couldn't for some reason. Apparently my sense of direction, perception, and judgment were fading too. Perhaps things would have worked out if I wasn't injured. No. This was a different realm. Though acknowledged by few, the outskirts of the village were the hunting ground of the merciless mountain god, Great Lord Shinai. The only ones free to move in here. I couldn't wait, so I just came down.
were the madmen siding with the mountain god. This was unreasonable, unscientific, superstitious, abnormal. Why was Chamie up the mountain? I'd always sensed her coming from below. What was that all about?
Alright, now love me while I kill you.
I couldn't even say a thing. But I felt like I still had a chance. I rolled down the mountain.
Go, go, go! Do your best!
Brimming with the joy of the hunt, Chamie chased after me. A part of me wanted the mountain to just collapse. My path was blocked off by the natural trees, plants, growth in general.
You're so, so cute.
My body was at its limit. Unable to tell whether my vision was turning dim, or if the mist was becoming denser, I continued rolling. I used the last bits of my energy to face her. The wolf was coming. He was close. He would devour both my flesh and soul alike. I'd won the feast, so I'd hoped the mountain god would at least save my soul. I'd gone through a load of difficult shit thus far, so it wouldn't be unfair to let me have a peaceful ending, right? Yeah, I knew full well that the world wasn't such a kind place. The upcoming death would surely be more painful and desolate than any before. After all, I knew that the one granting it to me was a girl I'd once loved. I didn't want this. I never desired an ending like this. Shit, shit, shit! I didn't care if it made me look like a sore loser. I wanted to go out in a way that would leave a thorn in Chamie's heart. I thought of a lot of meaningless things. Okay. I thought she'd been killed by Mochi. But my words escaped me. The wolf's fang pierced a spider instead of me. Why? That was all I could say, physically and mentally. Why was she alive? Why was she here? Why did she protect me? Those questions spun in my head, but only the last one found an answer. Of course she would do this. She was a descendant of the Uematsu until the very end. Her sense of duty and justice hadn't faded, even on the brink of death. She glanced at me, completely denying my assumption. That wasn't it. She was simply obeying her wretched, unwavering heart. After all, I was special to her. Sorry. I said another word. Sorry I couldn't stay with Mako. Sorry I couldn't protect everyone. Sorry I talked a wolf into a gamble that made it impossible for me to look you directly in the eye. That was the last word I would ever say. Even so, my eyes and ears were still active, as I witnessed everything that happened. Don't get in my way! With a maddened scream, the madwoman tried to pull the knife out, but she couldn't. It was probably snagged in her ribs, so badly that neither pushing nor pulling helped. Serizawa-sama. Her voice was hard to make out due to all the blood leaving her mouth, but it was calm, gentle even. I shall take in your corruption. What do you know, Yasumizu? Yomi's corruption binds me no matter what! But I remember enough of this to think about what those words meant next time. My failing vision merged them into one, and I noticed Rikako-san's hand reach for Chamie's neck by chance. Her finger caught on something. It was something on a string. A pendant? This is... No! No! Don't look! Amy released the knife, snatched the object back, and held it to her chest to hide it. Erisawa-sama. Her voice was dense with pain. Not only that, it was also tinged heavily with pity. I am so sorry. That is a corruption not even I can take in. I had no idea what those words meant, but... they carried the impact of a death blow for the wolf. I knew it! I knew it! I knew it! God, God, God! I'll kill you! Where are you? Where? I'll kill you, so come out! Come out! With that scream, Chiemi ran off somewhere. Into the mist. Probably had no clear direction. Rikako-san collapsed. I am sorry, Haruaki-sama. Trying to move in her heavy-looking robe, she tried to crawl over to me. Do not protect Erisawa-sama or anyone else. He wasn't the only one. I thought the exact same thing. I really wanted to say that and go out with a smile, but I could barely even breathe. I used the very last of my power to collapse towards her. I then reached for her hand. Haruaki-sama. Her hand lay over mine. All life left our eyes as we were gradually reduced to mere objects. Even so, her dying hand somehow felt warm. When we rise again, I will be more honest. Yeah. Huh. I wanted to respond to those feelings properly. I would destroy all my chances of losing, and I would leave the miss alongside this foolish, pure, lovable woman. Next time, for sure. Attain Key 15 Raging Loop. With the union of the humans, Rikako-san's stunt, and Kaori-san's sacrifice, we finally determined who all the wolves were. But they were one step ahead of us. Through their self-destructive attack, everyone died, the worst outcome. I have to aim to get the better of them in order to repay Rikako-san for protecting me all the way to the end.
そういう夢だったってわけだ。次はもっとうまくやれ。羊が1匹、羊が2匹。
Alrighty, but with that, we will go ahead and end the stream right here. Thank you all so very much for coming on by. I hope you have a wonderful time zone wherever you are, and as always, please do take care of yourselves and each other. I'm just curious. I might before I go to that one, I might go back to just clear up some of the other paths that were on that route. But yeah, looks like we're making pretty good progress. Let me look at the keys again. Only missing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Still a good amount actually. All right, but yeah,